Welcome back to this special edition of Wisdom Without the Guru. And this podcast I'm doing in collaboration with Tracy Fance. Tracy has been absolutely stunning and generous in offering her time to do these little mini podcasts. And some of you will remember, she was on the show before telling us about her story of developing her gifts. And she's a psychic medium and tarot reader who works with clients as a spiritual mentor as well. So, our previous mini episode was talking about your spirit guides. So, this episode is dedicated to understanding the basics of tarot because often we can actually call on spirit guides to help us with tarot. But having said that, many of us are afraid of tarot because, for one, it looks too complicated. I put my hand up right there. I'm too lazy to learn it. And there's another reason, which I've actually heard from previous guests, is that it's some people associated with, the dark and with the devil. And, oh, I can't touch the tarot because, that's going to take me it's almost like the equivalent of the Ouija board in some cases. So anyway, so welcome again, Tracy. Thank you so much for joining us again and for talking about that. So can you just start us off by just giving us a little bit of your background in tarot, just
Okay.
so everybody knows like where you're coming from, what angle you're coming from?
Okay. So I read the tarot very intuitively. It's not, the book says this and so on, because, like you say, there's way too much information and my poor little old head couldn't cope. So for years, I had a deck of tarot and I would get them out and play with them, but really it was just gobbledygook. I just really couldn't bond with them. So eventually I got rid of those cards and I bought another deck which I absolutely loved. I was the medieval Scapini deck, which is all gold leaf. It's beautiful, but some of it talked to me and some of it didn't. And so I ended up with a deck of the Rider Waite Tarot, which outsells all other tarot decks 50 to 1, even now. Okay. They've been around since the 1930s, I think. And they talk to me. So what I mean by that is when I look at a card, there is something in that card that will spark a bit of inspiration. Let me give you an example. Okay, so here we have got this poor person.
So remember that not everybody is going to see the card.
Right, okay, good thinking, Batman. Right, well, I got this card, and actually, even just the words will do it. So it's known as the Nine of Wands, which is all about goals and plans. Okay. And this poor man is there with a bandage around his head, looking a little bit battered and bruised, looking a bit sheepish, looking at the other wands that, you know, that are there. So if you can see it, then great. If you can't, don't worry.
Mm,
And
yep.
so when I look at that, it automatically makes me think of someone who's had a bit of a hard time, someone who's maybe doing the marathon and the last few miles is there, and they say the last few miles is actually the hardest bit. Um, and so it talks to me, it gives me little ideas that fire my synapses, and that helps me to be able to then give that message to the person that I'm reading for. So that's what I mean when I'm talking about cards talking to me. Okay. Um, and so if you are working with the tarot, but you're finding it really difficult, it may well be that you haven't got the right deck. And there is an old myth belief that someone else should buy your tarot cards for you. Well, I have bought umpteen decks and it took me a long time to get it right. So if someone else bought them for me, they probably wouldn't do any better. So I think it's better to buy your own tarot.
So yeah, I actually have to say that I do not. This is a personal preference for me, is because I think that I'm more visual. So
Mhm.
I really like these tarot decks that they follow along because there's a Rider Waite and then there's what's the other one? There's two forms of tarot that normally people the Rider Waite and there's another one.
The Marseille deck.
No, it's not the Marseille deck.
I mean, there's so many these days.
Anyway, it will have the swords, the cups, and whatnot in it, but it's visually different.
Mm.
Because for me, when I look at a Rider Waite deck, I don't get drawn to it.
Mm.
at all, at all. And for that reason, I've never always stayed away from them. I always do maybe get tarot decks that are based on that, but have their own art in it
Hmm.
that's represented differently. But when you're talking about the whole fact that, I mean, how do you, yeah. So, yeah, this is a question. So, how do you choose a deck? I mean, how do you get drawn to a deck? Do you touch it? Do you hold it? Do you feel it? Although shop owners usually don't like when you do that. So,
I think I bought mine after I saw someone else using them. Plus, I
mm,
did have a little shop for a while with a friend. So I did get to see lots of secondhand tarot cards and
yeah,
play with them and
me
stuff.
too.
But there is a website called Eclectic, so
That's a
Eclectic.
great website. Yeah.
It is. And you can go through the whole deck. Whereas mostly in the good old days before the internet, you went in the shop and they had a book, like a catalogue, but you only saw maybe one or two cards from it, which is probably why I've bought decks and gone, oh, I love that. And then when I've opened the rest of the deck, it's like, oh, I don't love the
Mm,
rest. So I would go to a psychic fair. I would go and have some readings and I would ask the readers which cards they use and see which cards grab you and which ones don't. I would have a look at eclectic. Um, I would just see as many decks as possible and see what leaps out at me. And if you're not into tarot, then oracle cards are brilliant too. And so, it might be that you are better with oracle cards and not with tarot.
mm. Yeah, this site, Eclectic, they actually have very good information on all of the decks, the origin of the deck, what it's based on, a little bit, I think, about the author, the creator of it as well. And they have a lot of images of the different cards. And they will also tell you if the deck is out of print. So I happen to like some decks that are out of print. So or that are very expensive. People are collecting tarot cards. I mean, I have a Lisa Hunt tarot that's, that's, well, it's worth some money. I'm just hesitant to let it go because I
Fair enough.
really like it. Although I never look at it, which is just stupid. Anyway, so where does tarot originate? And I mean, I have heard that people have actually used playing cards as tarot in the past, and some people still do.
Mm. Well, there's not a 100% factual answer to that. There are some people that believe it went back as far as Egyptian times. And we have to remember that back in the day, most people were illiterate. So you wouldn't pass a letter from person to person, but you still needed to communicate. So there's a belief that the tarot originally started out as symbolic picture cards that you could pass from one person to another to be able to talk about stuff you didn't want to be overheard talking about because there was lots of things to
Oh,
get you in lots of trouble if you said the wrong thing to
interesting.
the wrong person. Um, the oldest deck that I'm aware of is the Marseille, and that came
Mm,
out in Marseille in France in about 1300. And that's quite basic. So you've got a suit called Pentacles, which is coins. So card one literally just has one coin, card two has two, and so on. But it's very, very basic. Whereas when Arthur Waite and Pamela Coleman, I think it was, designed the Rider Waite deck, um, he actually had gone all over the place gathering symbology, numerology, arcane symbols, and just crammed it all into the tarot cards. Um, as I say, they've only been around since about the 1920s, 1930s. Um, but they did seem to revolutionize things for a lot of people. And the playing deck that you're talking about is very much the Marseille deck.
hmm.
And so I think that the Marseille deck might have been the forerunner to ordinary playing cards. So, yes, you can very much do a reading with a deck of cards.
And wasn't a lot, there's a certain type of tarot also that came out of Italy as well? Or is that my imagination?
No, you're probably right. I mean, they called it different. They called it tarocchi in Italy.
Mm, yeah.
I haven't actually seen a specific deck from Italy, but there are so many decks from, way
Yeah.
when. So, like these days we've got the Lenormand, which comes out of France, I believe. You've got the Faulkner Tarot, which is very modern, and everything in between. So there are just so many decks to choose from.
Okay. So if you want to work with tarot and you've managed to get your hands on one that you think you like, um, how do you start? I mean, first of all, is there some kind of, yeah, I'm going to go back into the ceremony thing like we talked about with the spirit guides. Because the ceremony, you see my house got a lot of crystals. So is there some kind of connection that you need to make first with the deck, some kind of ceremony, or every time you want to use it? I mean, let's start with that.
Okay. So the tarot are unique to you. I know that there are people that do not even let their clients touch their deck. And I must admit, I stopped in lockdown and haven't gotten back into letting the client shuffle. Um, but my energy is stronger than anyone else's. So even if a complete stranger walked up and picked them up off my reading table, I don't think it's going to do me any harm because I work with them, every day of the week. Um, I don't consciously do a ritual anymore, but I did back in the day. I would light my incense and set the intention that I was going to get my cards out and I was going to do a reading for myself, and ask my guides to work with me. So, as a minimum, you would want to ask for your protection and ground yourself, and then ask your tarot guide to come in and work with you. Um, and for me, it's just so automatic now that I don't even think about my ritual. I can just put down the phone from a salesman and pick up a call from someone needing a reading, and I'll just get straight in the zone. But that comes with years of practice. I didn't used to be like that. Um, the way that I taught myself tarot was to take the cards in order, take a big notebook and write down what I thought each card meant to me, like what did it say to me? And then I would leave a gap and I would go back and write what the book said. And I just went through the whole deck of cards, writing down what I thought. And then I went through with the book that came with the cards. And most of the time, I could actually see that I was in the right ballpark. There was one or two where I was a bit off, and I was like, oh, but their interpretation didn't feel right for the imagery. And so I just went with mine. Um, I do believe that the tarot and any reading is a two-way process. So if I'm telling my guide that this card means this, and he's telling me that every time I give you an apple, it means this, then we're going to get along famously. So our guides will work with whatever we want them to be. So I tend to think you've got to, the card has to feel right for you. If it jars and just feels like I don't get that when I look at that card, then it's not going to work for you. And I don't bother with upside down and right way up. If it feels like it's a good thing, I will say that. If it feels like it's a bad thing, I will say that.
Yeah, because I find the one thing with the tarot cards is that you actually already have some that are saying some that are not so nice.
Yeah.
or or more, not so, not that it's not nice. They're more telling you what to be careful of. And
Mm.
then you have these other cards that are like, yeah, yeah, you're doing the right thing. So you've already got the, reverse cards kind of in the upright version. So but and I know that there are some specific decks where they actually create them to not be read as, like the Shadowscapes Tarot by Stephanie Lau.
Hmm.
Hers is not created to actually be read in a reverse. So even if you got the card upside down, you still read it the normal way.
Okay.
But what about like connecting your energy with the deck? How would you do that?
Just by using it and getting familiar with it, the same as you would anything else that you're using a lot, like a pen or a particular knife and so on. So the more you use those cards, the more you practice, the more you find people you can read for, you'll just get more and more comfortable in your energy. You've already set that intention that these cards are mine and I want to work with them. And that's, the major part of the battle, to be honest. Like if I picked up your cards, I could still read with them because that's my intention, but they might feel really challenging to read with because they're not mine. So, but it is.
And you do that process that you talked about was sitting down with a book and, going through each card and saying what you intuit.
Mhm.
You should do that with every deck
Yeah.
that you have?
Yeah, absolutely. And, for, I mean, I never did the one where you pull a card every day and get familiar with that card and sleep with it under your pillow and everything else. But that definitely, does work for some people too. But I was in a bit of a hurry, so I did mine really quickly.
So even now, if somebody were to give you a brand new deck, would you then go through the whole thing and see what each card means to you?
Less likely now because, like some people are really good at jumping in another person's car and they'll be able to drive it straight away. Whereas another person, they'll just keep stalling the car or, they won't be able to find their way around it and it just is a nightmare for them. So I'm pretty good because I trust my intuition and I am very intuitive, plus I'm getting information clairvoyantly and clairaudiently, I can pretty much just jump from deck to deck and away I go. But I am most familiar with the Rider Waite. So I would say that you're more likely to get a much better reading because it will flow. Whereas I might need to do a few like test readings to get myself comfortable with a deck of cards that I'm not familiar with.
Okay. And, you talked about the spirit guide for tarot. So how and we've talked about that in the last episode as well about spirit guides. So how do you actually work with tarot and spirit guides? Because I always feel like when I use a tarot card, I need to be very clear with who I want to speak to through my tarot cards and that or my oracle cards. Or because I mean, is it really the deck speaking to you, or is it, or somebody you're asking to speak to you through the deck?
Good question. I think that the tarot for me anyway is, and I always describe it as like a key that unlocks the door to the intuitive information. Like if I sat and did you a reading without the tarot and it was just pure psychic, it's like I've got nowhere to go. It's like I don't know. Like if you said I want a general reading, I'm like, well, I don't know what to look at. Whereas if I did a general reading with the tarot, it would tell me that I'm looking at money. It would tell me that I'm looking at your goals. It would tell me it was about romance. Um, so it's like it gives me the building blocks to work with. Um, and so I think that it's my guides that are bringing me the information for the person I'm reading for. Um, and sometimes if I'm doing mediumship as well, then I'm getting other information from the loved one as well.
Okay. But for somebody who is looking at their cards, should they just be calling on somebody to talk to them through their cards or what?
Yeah, I would ask for your guide that helps you with the tarot to come and work with you. Work with your main guide as well. I would be happy to ask anybody that wants to work with me that's working in the light to come and work with me. So don't limit yourself is what I would say. And most tarot readers I know are very psychic as well. There are some that would say, "Oh, I'm just using the cards as a coaching tool. I'm not really using my psychic." But there's stuff that they would say that just isn't in the card write up. So I would question that. I just think that's their interpretation of how they work.
Okay. And so also with the cards, so you've got so talk about how the cards are actually split up because you've got I can't remember what they're called. You've got the different
Different soup.
I can't remember what it's called, Tracy. We're talking about that. As you can see, I use tarot quite a bit.
Okay, so
Not.
you've got two halves. You've got the major arcana and the minor arcana. And
That's
arcana
it.
secrets. So big secrets, little secrets. And so the major arcana are all the ones that we see in the movies, like the Death Card and the Tower and the Lovers and what have you. So think 007. Whereas the minor arcana is the deck of playing cards, 1 coin, 2 coins, 3 coins, and so on. So coins are generally called coins or pentacles. I love things in the spiritual world because just having one name is just not enough. Like even the chakras, some of them have got two names, like, just to make things harder. Um, then you've got wands, which are also batons or rods or whatever. Then you've got the cups, which is emotions. And some people call them goblets or chalices. And again, multiple different names for the same thing. Um, so what have we done? Cups and coins and rods. Oh, and swords, which might be épée, which is French for sword, or it could just be swords. And so again, people have messed around with them and given them different names and so on. So find one that works for you and stick with it is my advice. If you want to go, it's a sword. I don't want to know what it is in French. It's a sword. Okay. Then that's fine. Um, and those ones are all about the everyday little minutiae. Because let's face it, generally speaking, every day is not a monumentous event in our life, and if you have got that going on every day, then it must be exhausting. So for most people, the major arcana is more spread out in your life, and the minor arcana is the day to day stuff. Excuse me. And then together they give the full picture. So I tend to think of it that the major arcana is a bit like the headlines, and then you need the small cards to be able to get the real meat of the story. But that's just how I view it.
Okay. And when you're setting up, so I know I tried to self shuffle somebody's tarot cards like I was shuffling a poker deck. They were not happy. You know. So, what is the best way to prepare your cards, shuffling them,
Okay.
and to then choose?
Right. Everyone is different. So there is no right or wrong. And yes, you're right. There will be people that if you did the old poker trick with the cards, they'd be absolutely flabbergasted and horrified because they say it destroys the energy of the cards. Okay. Same as if you buy a deck that's secondhand or used, you can cleanse it by knocking any negativity out, by knocking on the deck, or just put them on the windowsill in the moonlight and that will cleanse them. And funny enough, mine feel quite heavy and thick at the moment energetically. So mine are on the windowsill waiting for the moonlight, and that will lighten the energy. Um, so everyone's different. Like, do you shuffle and take from the top? Do you split the deck and then split it again? There is no right or wrong. It's just about how you personally want to work. Um, I tend to just deal from the top and I just work my way through the deck until the person's got what they needed or the reading's over, whichever happens first.
So you don't cut the deck. Okay. Okay. And yeah, and then there's, some people say, oh, you can only cut or choose the card with your left hand
Yeah.
because that's the intuitive hand, so there's all
Yeah.
sorts of
I
things.
think we're getting into the territory of the footballer that won't change his underpants because every time he's worn his underpants, they've won. And truly, honestly, if you believe something to be true, then it will be true. So if you think that if you don't cut the cards, then, you're not going to get a good reading, then that's what will happen. If you believe that the other person has to shuffle the cards for it to work, same thing. But if I'm doing a phone reading or a Zoom reading, they don't get to shuffle the cards, so it really doesn't make any difference.
Yeah, that was Lucy Cavendish who told me not to. I don't know, who Lucy Cavendish is? She has quite a number of decks, a lot of oracle decks.
Yeah, I know.
She's Australian.
Yeah.
And I think I was shuffling. I don't know if it was my deck that it was an oracle class she was teaching, and I was shuffling. She says, "I don't do it that way. I don't like to have my cards done that way." It's like, okay, it's hilarious. Anyway, so what about asking questions? Because it's sort of like I think what we were talking about with the spirit guides in the last episode, where you have to kind of phrase your questions in a certain way. Otherwise, it's just going to be helter skelter what you get.
Yeah. Um, See, I think that this is spirit through and through. They can be quite black and white, Also, the tarot doesn't lend itself to yes no questions. So the tarot is more informative, like, is there anything I need to know right now? Or what would it benefit me to know about my work situation? So you get more of a full response. Whereas if you don't word the question right, like, say, for instance, I said earlier on, you're dating someone and you're like, oh, is this person right for me? And spirit will go, yes. And then it goes horribly wrong. And you're like, well, you lied to me. You told me that this would be a good thing. And it's like, no, actually, what I said was, yes, it was right for you. And you've learned this, this, and this. So, yeah, it was right for you. But it's like, ow, it really hurt. But if you'd have asked a different question, like, is this person the one I'm going to be with for the rest of my life? You'd have probably got a no. So you do have to think about the questions. And I think certainly if I'm trying to read for myself, sometimes there's the danger that I get what I fear most or what I want most. And so I tend not to read for myself. I tend to ask my guides to bring me signs based on what I'm needing to sort out.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good point that you raise about when you try to read for yourself, because I think it's really subjective as well. So it's hard to disassociate. It's like, "Oh, yeah, death card. Oh, rebirth. Okay. I'm doing a new project soon." Or, "No, that one is dying. That one is gone."
But you see, for me, I don't get the clairvoyance when I'm reading for myself. Whereas if I was reading for you, I'd get all this psychic information come in as well. And, people come back to me and say, oh, you told me such and such. I'm like, can't imagine myself ever saying that. But if you say so, whereas I wouldn't get that for me.
Okay. So how does somebody go about laying out the cards? Because they've got all these different spreads. I mean, but if you're talk about a beginner who's just starting out, do they pull one card every now and then, every day or two? Or some people like pull it every day. I don't know how they find the time to do that. But do they do a 3-card spread or, there's some very complicated spreads that are in some of these guides, which when I look at those, I think, no, I'm out of here. Give me the Oracle deck.
So I did exactly the same. So I just made up my own, to be fair. Um, I started out with a small spread, which was literally 3 cards, past, present, future, even if I was looking at a specific situation, because the past will tell us what's happened to bring us to the present, and the present will then show us the way forward. And so I would use that when I was doing quickie readings for people in the shop. And then I decided that was a little bit like only getting the headlines, and I needed more of the main body story. So then I actually started laying extra cards on top. So I think you can do whatever layout you want as long as you know what the positions mean to you. So, for instance, a lot of people use the Celtic cross, which is about 10 tarot cards. Um, Whereas I just can never remember all of those positions. And sometimes the position didn't feel relevant to the question that I was actually asking. So I actually do the Celtic cross, but it's a month by month thing. So I'm looking at the middle of the Celtic cross is where we're at right now. The one to the left of that is the following month, and so on as I work my way around the Celtic cross. And that just works for me. So I would say have a play with the simple ones to get to grips with them, and then bring in some of the more complicated ones. I've got a friend, when she reads tarot, she just deals from the top until she gets through the whole deck, and then she shuffles and goes again. So it really is whatever you want. Um, but because when we're learning something new, there's a lot that we're trying to master, I would just go with the past, present, and future until you feel that you need more. Or if the person you're reading for says, can I have more detail, then lay some more cards. And it's nice and simple and easy, and to just get your confidence and to get comfortable with the cards.
Wow, your friend goes through the entire deck? That's what, 78 cards? Wow, that must take a while.
No, she's really quick.
Okay. Don't like that. Next.
It's almost like speed reading with her, but she's very accurate, and
That's really interesting. I've never heard of anybody doing that.
yeah.
So we keep throwing in the word oracle here. So I want to ask the question about what is the difference between tarot and oracle, and why would somebody want to use oracle instead of tarot or tarot instead of oracle?
Okay. Basically, it's preference. People go with what they're drawn to. A lot of people, like you said at the start, really struggle to get to grips with tarot. They found oracle cards much easier. And of course, you've got angel cards, which are sort of like a subdivision of oracle cards. Um, and so I think it's what you're drawn to, it's what you feel works for you. And if you find the tarot overwhelming, then go for some oracle cards. And if you don't like the energy of the tarot cards, go with oracle cards. But I know a lot of people that actually pick a load of oracle cards or angel cards and put them to one side. Then they do the tarot reading and then they turn over the oracle or the angel cards. That all confirms what came out in the tarot. So again, it can be multiple levels because when your recipient or your sitter gets the same information in multiple ways, it kind of reinforces and confirms, and it helps them to accept what's coming up.
Okay. And for somebody who is doing this for themselves, I mean, can you get kind of too addicted to actually pulling cards for yourself? Because, it's almost like you can't tune into your own self if you keep just looking at cards all the time and asking for answers from the cards.
Mm, yeah, absolutely. It's like anything, you can overuse it. But then I know people that overuse their intuition. I remember being at a psychic fair and this lady went, "Oh, yes. I asked Spirit and they told me to wear blue today." And I'm like, well, I just looked in the wardrobe and pulled something out. I didn't need to ask Spirit what color to wear. But then if I was doing an important speaking event, I might well say to Spirit, what's the best outfit for me to wear today? But I can rely on Tracy and I can rely on my intuition. I don't need to ask them to tell me what to wear. So it's like anything, you can overuse it and lose sight of the fact.
Okay. And in terms of asking questions, I mean, what are some of the types of questions that somebody could ask of a tarot?
Goodness. I've had people ask me when their mother's going to die. I've had people ask me when the husband's coming back. I've had people ask me all sorts. I don't think there's a question I've never been asked yet. It's been a long time since someone's thrown me a loop. I've had people ask me when they're going to get pregnant, what sex the baby's going to be, what their life path is. I've just had pretty much everything that you could think of, to be honest. I think,
But in terms of somebody who wants to ask the question themselves to the deck that they're looking at, could you just say, okay, so what is my career path? Or is my career path, be more specific, is my career path in business or is my career path, that's not very specific because business can be anything. Is my career path in podcasting? Is my career path in accounting?
yeah,
So trying to be very specific and
yeah, they're very yes no questions, and the tarot struggles with yes no because if you laid three cards, that's yes no and a maybe. um, it's great for getting additional information, like what do I need to know about finances for the next 3 months, or what do I need to know about my career path, or um, tell me what's happening with my spiritual path, that kind of stuff.
yeah. Or something like, what is it that I'm doing that I shouldn't be doing, or what is it that I could do better? Things like that,
Yeah,
I guess.
absolutely.
Okay.
And what I find is when I'm doing readings, that there might be a theme. Like this weekend, I just did a 2-day event, quite some distance from me, and it was great. But the common thing that came up was that pretty much all of them wanted to develop their spiritual and psychic abilities. And then pretty much all of them in the next breath said, "Yeah, but I don't have the time." And it's like, well, you know, and you're never going to have the time. There's never the right time. But spirituality is a way of life. It's not something you pick up and put down like your running shoes. And you just have to find ways to incorporate it into your life. But it was interesting because it's given me a load of things that I'm going to post and share with my followers because it is a common issue. And it's made me sit and think about what can I do to give my followers and the people in my development program little things that they can incorporate into their day to help move them forward. Because if you don't do anything, you're never going to move forward. You're not just going to wake up one day and suddenly, bang, you can read the tarot or do mediumship. So you've got to put those steps in. Um, so I find that not only do I see this theme that makes me go, well, that's interesting. They've all got the same thing going on, but it's also for me as the reader. And that's happened ever since I can remember. Like if 10 people I'm saying to them, oh, you need to look after yourself and have more me time. I'm like, okay, note to self, Tracy needs more me time. It's come up 10 times this week, you know. So it's a two-way process when we're reading for other people.
Right.
I mean, ironically, the tarot was designed as a self-divination tool, but it's just something that I struggle with as a tool for self-divination. Whereas I've known other people over the years that, you know, they'll get tons out of doing a reading for themselves. So everyone's individual, everyone's different. So I would say give it a whirl and see how it feels.
I have a funny story for you. Ages ago, when I lived in Atlanta, Georgia, in the States, I somehow got hold of a tarot deck. I don't even remember what tarot deck it was. And I had the book, and it was quite a big book. And my friend was having a party, and she's like, "Hey, why don't you read the tarot at the party?" So I have no clue what I'm doing. And people are coming to me. I'm at this little table, and so they're asking me. And of course, everybody's had a couple of drinks or whatever. And so they would pull a card, and I would just look in the book and read from the book what the card said. And they were like, "Wow, that is so accurate. That is so on point."
Yeah,
So I think sometimes you can always get something from the interpretation that's even in the book
absolutely.
if you're open to it.
And I think once once you trust the tarot, once you trust your guides and you trust what is being given to you, it's much easier to remove the filter and just go blah, blah, blah. Whereas initially it's like, oh, yeah, but what if I'm wrong? What if they say no? Oh my God, what if I make myself look an idiot? And that's all pressure and that's all going to shut down the intuition and the link with spirit and everything anyway. And I definitely personally think it is much easier to do readings for a complete stranger than it is people that I know very well. So I would recommend that you practice on your friends' friends rather than your friends, just so that judgment thing has gone.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. I didn't know any of these people.
Yeah, much easier.
Definitely. Yeah, but that's actually there's something that happened to me once too, and this is something to consider when you're doing tarot cards, is that I had had this woman read for me before. I was at a friend's house, and this time I happened to take my husband with me, and I had just done the reading for me with her, and then my husband sat down and I stayed, and she kept pulling cards, and she was getting so annoyed because she kept saying, "This reading is for you. You need to leave because I can't seem to get a reading for your husband. It's like the cards keep coming for you." So she made me leave the room, and so he would have they had to start over.
Yeah.
So I mean, what's happening there?
And it's just that their energy, like your energy, was clearly stronger than your husband's. It could even be that she hadn't disconnected properly from you before she started with him. And once in a blue moon, somebody will come to me with someone else, and they're even if they're sat the other side of the room, it's like the person I'm reading for is going, "No, I can't take that," but their friend's going, "I can take that." You know, your energy is in the room. Um, but if you believe that you can't have two people in the room because that's going to happen, then it will happen more and more. So I just know that I need to cut the energy with that person or read for them first and then push them aside and then read for the other person. But it's not something that happens very often. It's the same as probably not even 1 in 100, I'll get somebody that I'm not connecting with and I just can't read for them. It doesn't mean they're going to die tomorrow. It might just mean there's something not meant to know, or they don't really need reading. And so, and that's one of the reasons I stopped doing the party bookings, like you were saying. Um, because quite a lot of them had had a lot to drink, and sometimes, honestly, it's just been, well, unspeakable because of the state they're in. And I just think that there's a sense of titillation. They're like, oh, yeah, Mary's having a party and she's got a tarot reader coming. So we're all going round there. Oh, I'll have a reading. They don't really need it. They're just doing it because the whole crowd is doing it. And then it feels
Mhm.
to me like pulling teeth doing the readings because they don't actually really need it, or it's not me they're meant to be with. They've just jumped on the bandwagon. Um, and so it took me a while to recognize that as well.
Okay. So would you say that ultimately, if you're going to work with tarot, that it's a way of building up your intuition and in trusting in your intuition?
It's definitely been hugely beneficial to me. And once I started working with the tarot all the time, my abilities just skyrocketed. Um, and because I'm a medium, I can do a reading without my cards. And sometimes the reading is just on fire and the information is just flowing and it's like, wow, that was amazing, and I hardly looked at my cards. And then another time it's like I've got to use every single card because it's like pulling teeth. And again, that's just about the energy. It's and everything is energy, so we're only as good as our connection to our guides and the person that we're reading for.
Mm. Okay. So if somebody were to do a tarot session, whether it be for themselves or for somebody else, do you always recommend calling in a guide first?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that, to know that you're protected and that someone is relaying that information to you. So if I were reading for you, then your guide is telling my guide and my guide is telling me. And so, it just brings that level of information and knowledge to a different degree.
Okay. And just one more question. So, as a tarot reader, are there some things that you really should not tell a client? I mean, I think one of them is you should never tell them when you think it comes up in the card that they're going to die.
Yeah. Well, in the UK, we're not supposed to talk about death. We're not supposed to talk about health. We're not supposed,
So you actually have rules around tarot reading in the UK?
well, just psychic readings, full stop. Um,
Okay,
So
interesting.
we're not
Okay.
supposed to talk about pregnancies, and I sort of will, up to a point. Um, so I had somebody who came to me and she was in a really difficult situation with her mother who was in a care home. And she was being torn between her mother because she felt like she needed to go every day, but she'd also got children and a husband and a job, and there just really wasn't enough hours in the day. And it really was killing her to have to do this balancing act. And I didn't actually say to her flat out, look, your mother's going to die in 3 months' time. Don't worry about it. But I made it very clear there was a big change coming, and she knew what that was. And it wasn't that she wanted her mum to die. It wasn't that she was after the inheritance, although I had people ask me where the wills are before. But she was just in such an untenable position, and it was really killing her health. And she just needed to know that this wasn't going to be going on for years and years. And that, I think, is the closest I've ever come to telling someone that there's going to be a death around them. So,
But if somebody tells you something like that, how should you deal with it? Because I mean, if somebody tells you somebody there's going to be a death,
mm,
I mean, just flat out comes because not all countries have the same type of restrictions that the UK does. Let's
yeah.
face it. Everybody's kind of willy nilly out there. So if somebody tells you something like that, how should you take it?
Okay. So I think if you don't want to know that kind of stuff, when you go for the reading, I would say, I don't want to know anything bad like terminal illnesses, people dying. I'd rather just not know. And
Mm.
I don't really see the mileage in saying to someone who's in their 20s, oh, you're going to get cancer and die in your 40s. That's just, if they're the wrong person, that's just going to wreck the 20 years they've got on the planet. Um, but you could point them in the right direction of, oh, I'm being shown you giving up smoking, or I'm being shown you need to do more exercise or something. Um, so I think, I mean, I've certainly heard lots of horror stories of people who have been told that bad news, and it's not always right, and we have free will. So, that can really take the fun out of life if you're waiting for the other foot to fall and then it doesn't for like 20, 30 years after when you were predicted to die. So I don't think it's very professional to do it. And I think if you really feel that you've got to give warts and all, then you should do it as responsibly as possible. Because you could say to someone, you're fat, lose weight, or you could say, I feel like that your health would improve if you lost some weight. And they are totally different ways of delivering that same
Yep,
information. And I just don't see the
definitely.
point in being blunt and rude. I mean, I can be blunt, sometimes people are going like, tell me what's happening with my relationship. And I'm like, well, really, you should have divorced him and moved out because you're not meant to be there. And I will be blunt with them, and there'll be reasons why they're hanging on. Maybe they're hanging on for the finances, or they're hanging on for the kids, or they're in love with the lifestyle. Um, but I just feel that it's nicer to be honest but responsible, and soften it slightly.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so to summarize all of that, so for somebody who wants to get into tarot, it is not the devil. You can choose a lovely tarot deck. And so, what you're recommending, one of the things you recommend is to go through each card, like put a journal about what you intuit in each card, and then also what it is that is actually written in the book to see where the overlap is and to not necessarily worry if there is no overlap. And what else? What else are some of the basics about? So pretty much anything can go about how you want to read the cards. If you want to read the reversals as reversals, or if you just want to read the cards as they are normally. Um, what else? What else am I missing here? In farm of connecting with the deck, the more you use the deck, the more you or your energy connects with the deck. And how you shuffle the deck is up to you.
It really isn't that much by way of wrong or right with the tarot. It really is
Mm,
what you want it to be. Um,
okay.
like some people say, if a card drops out or falls on the floor or whatever, oh, it's.
Yeah, that too.
I just think it's lazy shuffling. Some days I throw cards all over the place. Um, and so again, if you want to believe that that card is important, then put it in the reading. And if you want to think, oops, I'm just clumsy and I shouldn't have dropped that, then shove it back in and shuffle again. Again, there's no wrong or right. It really is up to you.
Mm, okay. Okay, great. Okay, so any final advice for anybody who starts to delve into tarot?
Mm. Have fun. It's not serious, it's not evil, it is fun, and you can have some great fun, and there's some really great fun decks out there. I've had a deck that they call the Hollywood deck, and every reading I did with it was wrong, completely the opposite. So I got rid of them. But I mean, there's probably a Harry Potter deck. So if you like Harry Potter, go get one of them.
There is. There is.
Yes, there must be. So go with something that really does fire you up, and something that you're going to enjoy working with. And if you want to work with multiple decks once you're comfortable with it, then fine. I've been to events where people turn up with suitcasefuls of different cards, and it's like these ones for romance, and these ones for money, and these ones for business. And then there's people that have got 300 decks and still use the same one all the time. So it's just but yeah, have fun with it. Relax and have fun and enjoy it because it is fun. It doesn't need to be too formal.
But some of the decks are so beautiful, you can't help collecting them. And then, then exactly what you say. I was one of those people that had a lot of decks, but then I only ever use a certain few.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
yeah.
So, you actually teach classes on how to read the tarot? as well? Are these online classes or in-person classes? What is that?
It's both. I'm thinking about starting a tarot circle, maybe in August, because a few people are saying to me, "Oh, I really want to learn the tarot." And I've done Zoom and I've done in person before, so it's not something that you need to be in person with. And so, whichever way you feel drawn, to be honest.
Okay. So we will put the link to your website up on the show notes, and then also it will be here. You'll see it on the video, and just follow up. And if there's a tarot circle, maybe that's the thing for you to join and to explore more. And of course, in the meantime, if you have any questions, reach out to Tracy. I'm sure she'll be happy to answer them.
Absolutely,
But thank you so much. That was a lot of information. Our mini podcast seems to be expanding into a mini maxi podcast, but
it's a MIDI.
it's a MIDI, exactly, exactly. So, thank you so much for that, Tracy.
Pleasure.
So, for the next time, please do join us because Tracy is going to be talking about discovering life purpose because some of us are walking around going, what is it that I want to do? What is it that I could do? So, this special mini podcast is going to be aimed at helping you to discover life purpose. So thank you, everybody. And until the next time, see you or hear you. Bye bye.